And welcome back to hanging out with me and Mitch every week, talking about college football week 4. With, as Mitch and I were discussing, kind of a bizarre weekend, just in terms of not a lot going on. It's kind of one of those quiet weeks. You have those explosive weeks sometimes that you didn't expect, and then you have those that kind of are just like, did a lot go on this weekend? And so, we got 3 to start this thing off, just in terms of our takeaways of the week. We're going to definitely talk about Clemson, just looking dominant in their performance against NC State. To see the offense get rolling again like that, that's something that we haven't seen for a while now from Clemson. You got Michigan at the Big House that played a very physical football game, was able to beat USC with some implications around that game. But Mitch, where I want to start and where we need to start on bizarre college football week 4 is what went down at North Carolina. And basically, for those that don't know, you had JMU roll up there and score, I believe, 70 points
Yeah,
on
drop
North
30.
Carolina. And then a wild situation unfolds after the game where Mitch, basically take them into a little bit of what happened there.
I guess Mack Brown comes into the locker room after the game and says, I can't keep hiring defensive coordinators that let up 70 points. And then tells the team that he's going to resign. Going to tell the media right there that he is going to resign and no longer be the head coach of North Carolina's football team after week 4 with 9 weeks left. And I guess just the locker room kind of went mayhem and players started saying some choice words, rightfully so, towards the head coach. I mean, that guy quit on him and allegedly said he was going to quit on him in the middle of the season. So I'm sure I would have been right there with him saying some choice words, but apparently he's coming back. He's not leaving, and he's still the head coach. I mean, nothing really surprises me in college football anymore, but that's definitely a new. I've definitely never heard that before, so definitely a lot to unpack there.
Well, Mitch, and you're coming straight out of the locker room, like straight out of the locker room at Wake, straight out of the locker room at Marshall, and it's like you look at the coaches and you look at the interactions that you guys have, and I don't know, the way that we see them is like we see the stress that they're under, like we see all the things that they face on a daily basis. But you have Mack Brown, who's like a legend in the sport. I mean, national championship with Vince Young at Texas and now at North Carolina, and just known as a great man who loves football and loves his guys and is a good person. And to kind of step under the idea of resigning, so emotionally after a game, because we have a couple of people in the North Carolina locker room that we know, and like it was never the case prior to. And so for him to step in there and kind of let those words fly, I think it kind of, illustrates the stress of being a coach in today's college football, and just to go on that roller coaster ride for a man that's that seasoned, and seems to still have damn good wits about him. Like, talk a little bit about what you witnessed just in terms of the stress that guys are under as college football coaches in today's game right now.
Yeah, it's nuts, and especially in a society that's becoming less and less patient. You really don't have a lot of time to win in college football. If you're a new coach at a new school, you typically get 2 years, and then year 3 is a prove it year. But the higher the level and the bigger the school you go to, that prove it year starts becoming year 2, and at some points it's the first year. And college football coaches are under a lot of stress, and I understand that they chose the profession, and a lot of them make a lot of money doing it, and they're paid well. But it is very stressful. You're putting your family, your livelihood and your family's livelihood on a bunch of 18 to 23-year-old dudes. Not the most reliable bunch of folks, but it is what it is. You make the choice to coach, and it's hard, especially when you have a family. There's constant moving around, and going from job to job. It's not a very secure job, to be honest, and it's a lot of stress, especially when you've had to move a lot. Not only that, you could be the offensive coordinator at Wake Forest one year, and then the next year, if something goes wrong, you're the offensive coordinator at a Lehigh. It's just crazy. How, and you're taking a pay cut, and you're moving to a whole nother city. It's just crazy how fast things can change, and how fast you can work your way up, and how fast you can get demoted. It's unreal, and there's not a lot of security. You got to have some thick skin, but there is a lot of stress, especially when you bring family into it. But I was surprised with a guy like Mac, who's kind of solidified himself as a Hall of Fame level coach. I'm sure he has kids, and I'm sure they're grown now, so he's not really providing for them anymore. And his wife, she knows what college football is about. She's been with him for a long time. So to see a guy like that get so emotional is definitely interesting. Like you said, especially with a seasoned guy like that who's been through it all. You got to think there's something else going on there. Obviously, I don't know what. I really didn't even know this happened until Austyn told me about it, and now I'm just perplexed because I've never seen anything like that. As a head coach, you're a leader of men. You have to be the same guy every single day. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. And to make it an irrational or not, I guess an irrational statement like that where he's emotional and not in a great state of mind after a loss like that, I'm shocked, honestly, and I feel bad for those kids.
For sure. I think it's a difficult situation to be in. I think to your point, one of the things that I wanted to bring up just on top of that stress is we're definitely watching a shift in college football just with NIL and the way that recruiting works nowadays. And the difference is, in college football now versus college football 5-7 years ago are completely different worlds. So I think, in terms of the development models that some of these coaches have had in place at their programs, like Mack Brown was at Texas, he built a national championship winning program and a hell of a culture for the Longhorns. And now he goes to North Carolina and he wants to impart that development philosophy as a part of his program. And then you look at the ever-changing revolving door of players and coaches in today's world, recruiting 12 months a year, and you being a development-based program, it's a lot of stress to sit in a situation that is now less relational in a lot of ways. You don't have that continuity. And without that continuity, that's just my assumption, is that the erratic nature to how he went about that he puts himself in a really tough position. And now, to you, Mitch, how do you feel that the locker room handles a situation where, he basically revealed his true colors in that moment after the game in terms of just where his head is at? And it could just be momentarily, but he definitely gave you true colors there. How do you get back on board with that as a player?
Honestly, I don't know if you can. It's really hard just to kind of hear a guy that wants to quit on you. For the rest of the year, you're going to wonder if is he 1 foot in, 1 foot out?
Right.
What's the deal here? And for a lot of these kids, for all these kids, you either committed out of high school or you committed out of the transfer portal. You've put a lot of trust into this staff and a lot of trust in this university. You're stuck there for a whole year. And I don't mean stuck in a negative way, but in this instance, you are stuck because it's not like you can just transfer or leave in the middle of the season. But when your coach says that he's resigning and you still have 8 games to play, it's well, what are we doing here?
Right.
Are we even? Well, obviously we want to win, but are we as a program trying to win? Our head coach doesn't even want to be a part of it. And as a player, you're the one out there sacrificing your body and sacrificing your health every week. You want to do it for a cause, but if your head coach doesn't want to be a part of it, it's well, what are we doing here? I'm just going to go throw my body around and lose some brain cells for shits and giggles. I don't know. I think you might have lost the locker room there, and it's really hard to get it back because you can say things and you can apologize, but you can never take back what you said, and that's a tough situation to be in.
No, and so we'll see how it moves forward from here. Just him having to come out and clarify in the media, I made a mistake. I do want to come back. I am staying as the head football coach here. Just feel like there's a lot of things that are going to be being whispered in that building, around. And you hope that they can come back out and get a win this week so that some of that goes to bed, because winning will do that. And I think that that's a situation that we can move into next, is 2 programs that have had great culture over the last few years and are not suffering through any of those things. And one of them in Michigan, before we get into the explosive firepower from the week in Clemson, let's go Michigan at the Big House. Just this situation or this season has been less than ideal perceptively in terms of how this thing has started. You get absolutely waxed by Texas, and then you don't look like you have much of an offensive rhythm or identity of any kind, and you take on USC. And USC, obviously, as we saw what they did to LSU, is a good football team, and they got to travel up to you at the Big House. But now with the new Big Ten and the way this thing works, like you're playing good teams all the time. And for Michigan, like I thought that this game was going to be a game that would kind of dictate just how the rest of the season was going to feel. When you talk about like it being a game of inches, I know there were a couple plays in there that were like 1-2 yard plays on 3rd and 4th down situations that kept the game where it needed to be for Michigan. You look at like, if we're sitting here and Michigan has 2 losses and got waxed by Texas and then got beat by USC at the Big House, like the narrative there versus the narrative today off of a big win against a good team. So what do you think the stark difference is there, Mitch, just in terms of the narrative and how tight that really is in terms of what Michigan's season looks like and what it's being talked about now as?
Yeah, I mean, man, if you have hope in a season, that's the greatest. That's the greatest strength the team can have is hope. Once you know that your goals are unachievable, obviously you play for the love of the game and you're always going to play hard, but it's a little bit harder to get up and for practice in the morning. It's just naturally as a competitor, if your goals aren't on the table, it gets harder, and you have to dig deep as a man and still work and figure it out. But man, they still have hope, and so does USC. USC still has hope, but it still gives them playoff hopes, and it's a Big Ten win, so it still keeps them alive for the Big Ten championship. They do still have to play Ohio State, obviously. So that's you don't want to chalk it up as a loss now, but it's a potential loss, So if you go in there with 3 losses, you're not, or if you end that game, Ohio State game with 3 losses, you're out of the playoffs for good. But yeah, just a big win, especially getting waxed at home versus Texas. This is your second big game in Ann Arbor. You really want to defend that home field advantage, and they did a great job of that. And I think it also welcomed USC to the Big Ten. They beat LSU, which is a huge win.
Huge.
But to me, that was more of a speed-on-speed game, and obviously LSU has some big dudes, and it's the SEC, so it's different cats. But Michigan is straight, just big country boys, and with some athletes around them, and kind of welcome them to the Big Ten. So I thought it was a great football game. Also, Michigan's been struggling offensively the whole year.
Yeah.
They first quarterback. Switched their quarterback to Alex Orji, I think is his name, and he was the starter, and he got the job done. So, a big first start of the season for him. I believe it was his first start to beat USC, who had already had a win at versus LSU. It's a big win for the program, keeps the hopes alive, and really keeps your season going.
Well, and in that game, too, like Mitch just said, in terms of Alex Orji's first start, like this guy was 7 of 12 for 32 yards. 7 of 12 for 32 yards. Like, I believe he had 13 carries for 45 yards, but 7 of 12 for 30 yards. No one else threw a pass attempt for Michigan during the game, and you beat USC. So that is, to me, us saying we know who we are now. We are going to play within the tackles, load up the box, give ourselves a dynamic quarterback with his legs back there to hold them accountable on the defense to balancing numbers, and we're going to knock you out in a street fight. And that's kind of what their identity was last year, but they had a ton of senior leadership and it's a very different team this year, but you saw that identity be established. So, from here on out, like low scoring games, cold weather games, like they're going to be all jacked up for all that stuff as the season turns.
That's a
into
Michigan game,
dude. It's a Michigan game, and
great gray skies just looked horrible outside. Like, that's them.
and it's one too that after USC beats LSU, and then Michigan gets to then put it on USC, like to do it with USC knowing that you're pretty much one-dimensional on the offensive side of the ball. It's a very like demoralizing way to beat somebody when you just pound them physically. And like that's what Michigan did. And in a true Michigan game, like Michigan ain't going to blow teams out by much. They're not going to win games by 2-3 scores. Like these guys are winning ugly football games, and they did exactly that. Yeah. So you could see that change them a little bit as we move forward into the season. How about the opposite end of offensive firepower in Clemson, dude? Mitch, what are you seeing out of the Clemson offense that I think, honestly, like they've been a very good team for a really long time, but like I think it's been almost 2 years since we've seen
Yeah.
some of what we've seen the last 2 weeks. So to you, watching Cade Klubnik, watching Clemson, and what they were able to do to NC State, you played against NC State's defense. You know what that thing looks like. Like, they got good scheme over there. They got good players. So to do it that way, what are you seeing from Clemson right now that kind of it makes them a major ACC contender now with Miami kind of running away with the thing? It's like, Clemson looks like, no, we're here to run too right now, and like that's kind of what I feel. So what are you seeing from them?
Yeah, and honestly, any time that I see a team beat NC State, that's like my good team qualifier. We played State every year at Wake. If not our biggest, like they're one of our biggest rivals, if not our biggest rival. We hated State, they hated us, and we had some bloodbaths of football games. And but their defense, Tony Gibson is a phenomenal defensive coordinator, and they do an amazing job. They are not super exotic. They're a 3-down, 3-safety team, and they run like 3 or 4 coverages, and they get into zero all the time. I mean, all the time. They're running zero like 20, 25 times a game. They're coming at you. But they're just so well coached. They're so physical, and they play hard as shit. So to see a team beat the brakes off of them like that and score that many points on them, that's an elite offense. And that does not happen often versus NC State. I know they started a true freshman for the first time. Grayson McCall was out with an injury. True freshman on the road at Clemson. I mean,
tough.
Talk about can't make it tougher than that.
Tough deal.
So Clemson had it going for them, obviously, going into the game, and I think they were like 17-point favorites or something like that. But just to talk about their offense, I mean, it just seems like Cade Klubnik had a kind of a confidence and a swagger to him.
Mm-hmm.
Had an early like 70-yard, 50-yard touchdown run to the house, and he's celebrating in the end zone. You can kind of just tell that he felt like the man and had this aura to him that he was here to play ball. And just the last 2 weeks, I think after the Georgia loss, dude, I mean, they got embarrassed. Even last year, right? Didn't have a phenomenal year offensively. And then all that pressure to have a better year, you get waxed by Georgia. And these 2 weeks, he's completely responded and just played great versus a good App State team, which we talked about last week, and then dropped 56, I think, on NC State. I mean, and putting up some stupid numbers. I think he's just playing free and kind of saying, fuck it, man. I'm here to ball. And they're gonna go as far as he goes. And I think they made a case that they're right up there. Who knows how close, but they're up there with Miami to compete for the ACC, and we could see both of them making the playoffs. No doubt. I could see them both getting in. So college football is better with Clemson good.
Damn right. What have you seen offensively that they have shifted a little bit into besides Cade just playing better? Like, what are you seeing from them offensively?
Honestly, just like they got dudes everywhere, man. They're getting the ball to their guys in space, and they're going some tempo. It's like a true, Garrett Riley's the OC, Lincoln Riley's brother, and I think in that offense, it's an air raid offense, but they're going to run the shit out of the ball too. A lot of air raid concepts, but they're not afraid to run the ball. And I think they have a good back, and obviously Cade is athletic enough. And I think you just see just a transition of like there's a lot of base plays in that offense, and they're going to go fast, and they're going to dial up some gems each week. Just watching Lincoln Riley coach, and then I know it's his brother. Just playing a lot of tempo, being simple, getting the ball to their guys in space, and letting Cade kind of just be himself and play ball. I feel like simplicity is king in college football. I'm a firm believer in that, and that's what it looks like they're doing. And Cade's a good distributor, man. He's a good athlete, and he's been balling out. It's been fun to watch because that defense is legit. So if you score 28, you can win every game at Clemson. And I mean, they've scored 66 and 56, so they're running away with these games.
For sure. I'm gonna throw this out here just because this is what Mitch knows. Like, I'm wild and speculative about a lot of things that I like intuitively feel about what I'm watching from a team. And after watching Clemson last year, and they struggled offensively. Like, they may have scored points, but they struggled offensively, just in terms of not having a lot of confidence, not having a lot of swagger. It was Lincoln's brothers. We need to stop calling him that, but it was Garrett's. His name's Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley, all right? Garrett Riley. It was Garrett Riley's first season last year, and it just looked like, that they were in an identity crisis, that Cade was a little gun shy, that they were just uncertain about what they were doing. And then the first couple games of the season this year, like, I just didn't think that they played to their potential, obviously, Georgia being a tough one there. But it almost feels like they hit a point where you have that locker room conversation or you have that meeting and you go, for 15 weeks, guys, dating back to the beginning of last season, I haven't seen us play like we didn't give a shit. And what I mean being like that swagger and that loose, fun, let's go hang 50 on this team today. Like they hadn't played that way. And it almost has seemed that over the last 2 weeks, they're trying to make sure that they do play that way in terms of the style and the tempo at which they're going about running their offense is fast, explosive, kind of like a fighter who's always pushing you backwards. It's like Clemson is keeping their foot on the gas. And to me, like Mitch said, it's such a strong defensive school. Like that defensive line is absolutely ridiculous. And their front seven on defense every single year. I mean, you can say it, Mitch. Why don't I just throw it out there for him? It's like you played against that front seven last year and whatever. It's a down year at Clemson. What? And they were like 8-4, 9-3. It's like
No, they were like 9-3 and had like 3 guys get drafted in the first round. So whoever said they were down, shut the fuck up. I played 70 snaps in that game. They're not down. I can promise you that.
100%. So when you look at just how you felt at the line of scrimmage, like when you see those guys. And I remember like a double ammo X blitz that these guys brought at you with a safety, dude, that they stunted the front too. And I was like, I don't know if I designed the protection knowing they were bringing that blitz that we would have been able to stop that fucking blitz. But you were back there, dude, and it was a hell of an experience in terms of you soaking in that orange ambiance, but you also got fucking banged around quite a bit, dude. So just what's it like to see a Clemson front seven on defense and kind of talk about the identity of what you felt of that team last year?
Yeah, I mean, so we're playing that game, and they've always been not only do they have dudes, man, they've always had a great scheme, and they're an aggressive scheme team. So they're always a big zone pressure team. We'll sprinkle in some man pressure, and to be honest, but they run every defense under the sun, like every defense under the sun. They go 3 down to a 4 down. They go 3 down with 2 safeties. They go 3 down with 3 safeties. They literally run every defense. They run every blitz. They run every coverage. So breaking them down is a nightmare. You just know that you're going to get zone pressure. And last year with the new defensive coordinator, they kind of went more of what we called 4-sift that week. A lot of people call it mini.
Yeah.
It's kind of a variation of 2-man. But they just had guys, and they knew that they could sit in 2-man with their front because they'd guys with block shed. And every year versus us, they always got into a bear front. And what people don't know, a bear front is just 5 defensive linemen. You got a guy head up on your center in the 3 technique and a 5 technique. And basically what they're saying is our 5 is better than your 5.
Totally.
And no matter what school they're playing, most of the time they're right because they had 3 first-round picks at the D-line every single year. And with that bear front, they brought a lot of safety pressure, a lot of nickel pressure, and then the Brent Venables Classic. So stay with me here. You're in 2x2, okay? You have a tight end attached. And what they're going to do is they're going to plug, okay, the double A gaps. So you bring in 6. And then that safety over the tight end, okay, who looks like he's in man, is going to blitz, and they're going to sprint the defensive end next to tight end to play man-to-man because they got guys to do it. So we call that a bonsai blitz at Wake. And they hit it. We're ready for it every year. We know it's coming every year. And, bro, they hit us with it every single time. And it's a great blitz. And we were ready for it, so we kind of stopped getting into 2x2 a little bit because we knew it was coming. It's just, man, they're so good scheme-wise, but just they got some cats, dude. Like, you're blocking 6 for 6 up front, and they're still making plays. And I posted on my quarterback science Instagram. There's a little reel of me getting my shit clocked on some blitzes. And man, I left that game pretty sore. But I will say that was the most fun I ever had playing a college football game. That was so cool, dude. How loud it was. I had a blast, dude. We had a chance to win it. Unfortunately, turned the ball over at the end. Didn't capitalize on a lot of early mistakes by Clemson, which was my fault on some of those. But, man, it was so much fun. Second half, we played great, and we almost had it. It would have been a very different story if we won that game. But, dude, when people say they were down, I mean, that's the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard in my entire life. They had dudes everywhere, and they were bringing the house a lot. But it's good to see Clemson performing on offense because they're a national title contender program every single year.
For sure. And they're going to need it to beat the top team in that conference right now, at least what it looks like. Where Miami, I mean, what Cam Ward's doing, guys, just to finish this segment is, he's making plays that very few people in the world are making at the quarterback position in any league right now. And the way that they're playing together on both sides of the football, it started a little close last week, and then they pulled away. It's just you're going to have to score with them in a track meet. And that's going to be interesting to watch Clemson continue to mature and gain confidence on offense. And Clemson obviously has a hell of a defensive front, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But, Mitch, do you see that as those two coming together in the ACC right now?
Yeah, I can't really think of a team that's going to compete with them. I'm always big on State. They always have a good team, and they always play well down the stretch, but they're struggling a little bit right now, and their quarterback's out. Virginia Tech hasn't performed what everybody thought they could be this year, but it's still early. But, BC looks good. I don't think BC has the horses to play with those guys, but they look good, and we'll see. Everything comes down to November, so.
Damn right. Well, that's a hell of a start to the week, but I'm going to make Mitch finish this, and I'm going to make him finish this on the record. I looked at next week's schedule, and we got Georgia on the road at Alabama. All right, at Alabama. You're on the record right now, okay? I checked it, and I believe it said that Georgia is favored by 1.5 points, okay? Let's just call that a wash and say it's who's going to win this football game. Alabama, Georgia, in Tuscaloosa, and we all know, I think, didn't they both have bye weeks this week? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, they did.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that they both had bye weeks, so they're both off a bye. And, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. That place is going to be rocking at 12:30. I think it's rocking. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So, anyway, what do you think, dude? What do you think?
I got Georgia. I got Georgia on a goal line stand to win it.
Oof. Doing it with the defense, dude.
Georgia on a goal line stand to win it. Yeah.
It's
I think Georgia's gonna get up early, and then Alabama's gonna make it close, and they're gonna have a chance to win at the end. Georgia's gonna get a stop. What do you think? I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I just think right now that I've seen a lot more from Georgia. I think Alabama in Tuscaloosa is gonna be tough, no question about it. I just feel like Georgia with Carson Beck and the defense. I trust Georgia's defense more, and I trust Georgia's quarterback more.
Yeah.
So and that's a tough call, right? Because Jalen Milroe is one hell of a player, and what he's able to do dynamically on both sides is pretty incredible. It's just when you play the way that Milroe plays, you have to be very, very consistent with the opportunities that you're given, because it's a very risky style of play too, just in the sense that he's running it all the time, the ball's free, The reason that I'm saying it this way is because they keep Carson Beck a lot more protected at Georgia, and he can kind of play the game on schedule a little bit more. So I want people to understand that when I say that is I'm not saying that Carson Beck per se is way better than Jalen Milroe, and that's why that I believe Georgia's going to win. But you look at the way that they ask them to do things, and I think that Carson's job is going to be a standard Saturday on Saturday. Jalen Milroe is going to have to play his absolute ass off in both areas in order for them to beat Georgia. So do you kind of see it that way too, Mitch?
100%. I don't think Carson Beck has to win them the game, but Jalen Milroe has to be Superman on Saturday for him to win the game. I believe that.
I need to do the thumbnail of this video with Jalen Milroe, dude, with the Superman deal.
But he can do it.
He's
a guy that can do it.
That dude can put on the cake quick. Yeah. Well, that's dope. There's our 3 takeaways. College football week 4, guys. We're coming at you with the quarterback segment next. And what happened to Jackson Arnold down in Oklahoma, dude? That was just a tough Saturday that we all feel for. So jump over into those videos and tune in. Drop anything in the comments that we missed, anything that we can improve on. But that was pretty sick to listen to Mitch go into a 2-man and block shed there for a second. Right, Mitch?
It's not fun to play against. Peace.